I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Oh, Great American Pillow Fight coming at you.
Man, take me out. Somebody just turned the go switch on these suckers and people are moving a lot faster. Something's going on, and I ain't ready.
On behalf of Jumping Off Sides, we'd like to thank our presenting sponsors, Rubber Boot Crawfish Company. With 2 locations to serve you on Uri Drive and Mansfield Road, don't forget to ask about the 5-pound box special. Tell them Jumping Off Sides sent you.
Now, from Suite 11 at Louisiana Downs Casino and Racetrack in some basement in rural Central Florida, it's the Jumping Off Sides Podcast Network. Here's your host, Chance, JD, and Mike.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 39 of Jumping Off Sides. We have a special guest in studio today. He was a 2008 first-team All-SEC running back, 2007 national champion for the LSU Tigers, Jonesboro, Louisiana's Charles Scott. Charles, welcome to the show.
How you doing, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thanks coming on, Charles. Very good to see you again.
So we wanted to bring you on to kind of talk about, your career at LSU and some of the things that, stand out as far as some of your games and just where the state of college football is, and also, how you feel about, the coaching situation in Baton Rouge. Mike's not a real big fan of Coach Brian Kelly, so we'll just go ahead and get that out of the way. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Charles.
Well, yeah, of course, you said I'm from Jonesboro, Louisiana. Grew up small town, in the country right down the road, and ended up playing football at Jonesboro Hodge, and of course going on to sign with LSU, and then getting drafted by the Eagles. I played a very short stint with the Cardinals, and then ended up with the New York Giants on practice squad for 2 years. So I was fortunate to get a little bit of experience in the NFL as well, and all of my experiences were great with football, of course, and the most meaningful thing I believe is the connections that I've created along the way, playing the game. So,
yeah,
absolutely. So, when you grew up, were you an LSU Tiger fan, or who was was that your team when you were coming up and to be recruited by them?
Yeah, both of my older brothers actually walked on to LSU. A lot of people don't know that.
Really?
So I was always, tuned in and watching the game. And also my dad drove the bus for one of the local high schools. And that high school just so happened to go to state every year. And, of course, basketball back then, state was at the PMAC.
Yeah,
that's right.
So, it was always a constant being on campus and being around it. So, you really don't have a choice in Louisiana to be an LSU fan. You're kind of born into it. So,
let's not get carried away, Charles. Let me ask you this before we get started on your Jonesboro life and stuff. Do you know a man named Howard Chuck Chew Kirkendall?
Howard Kirkendall. The name doesn't
ring a bell. Chew? Oh, okay. All right. Well, we're going to definitely meet up with Chew then out at Squire Creek sometime.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Charles, I asked you this a little bit before, and I want to jump into it a little. One of my buddies told me, he's like, man, you got to ask him about this game. 2007, LSU's undefeated. Y'all go to Kentucky, and you're, I think, number 1 in the nation at the time. You had 8 carries for 94 yards in the first half. In the second half, you had 1 carry in the second overtime on 4th and 2.
Come on.
I mean, it's one of the most common questions I get. People have asked me that for years, and I mean, to this day, I don't have an answer for it. Legitimately for the reasoning of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they simply chose to, not play me the second half. I didn't get in trouble, anything like that, or nothing happened at halftime. It was just a change in scheme and a change in game plan.
It's just hard for somebody that's outside of the game to see you got 100 yards rushing in the first half and you have one in the second half. I know we talked a little bit before about Les Miles and how, yours and his relationship wasn't always the best. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, it was a tough situation as a kid, being in where you couldn't really show how you felt and you couldn't speak out because people would look at you in a negative light. And so it was a situation where I just kind of had to suck it up and do what I knew best, and that's support my teammates.
Yeah.
Everybody knew, I should have been playing, even the guys on the sideline with me. And I let that speak for itself. That's why I never mentioned it. I never complained. I just congratulated my teammates and cheered my guys on. I knew that when he did give me the ball, I was going to do something electric every time. But when he didn't, hey, it'll speak for itself. If we end up losing this game, it'll speak for itself. If we win because you played me, it'll speak for itself. And I just hate that it's a situation where kids are being put in, where they're being told things like, "Oh, well, you got enough. Let somebody else get some." And that's part of what Les Miles used to do with us.
Yeah.
He would let guys score a few, and then he would literally say, "Hey, man, you got yours. Let Keelan get his." You just kind of had to sit back and roll with it. So.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I would think at a certain point you stay with a hot hand with a guy who's got. I mean, I'm not the best at math, but it seems like that was close to a 12-yard average. So maybe he had some bad turf at halftime and got caught in his throat or something.
Monsanto on it. Some of that Roundup got to him, I believe.
Something I said. I don't know. Something I said at halftime, maybe. I don't know.
I'm hot.
Yeah.
I'm hot.
Yeah. You might want to keep giving me the damn ball, Coach.
Exactly.
Just saying.
We're still trying to figure that one out today.
Yeah.
So in those days, pre-NIL, where it was a lot of players, coaches, you couldn't say anything, could you?
Well, I mean, as a kid, you didn't really have a voice to complain about stuff like that. And not saying that anything is worth complaining about, because in the end, I'm D1. I got a scholarship. I'm going here for free. Mm-hmm. I have all these great opportunities in front of me. So when you really look at it, it's not anything to complain about, but you still have to consider, hey, what if you would have let me play as much as I should have? You have to also consider that. And you have to also consider what did you hinder me from as personal goals in my career.
Yeah.
So, but it's water under the bridge, but it's definitely something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
When you think back about all the mind-boggling decisions, though, that Coach made at some of those junctures of games, as players, did y'all all kind of get together out of the football ops center or whatever and be like, what the hell was he thinking doing that?
Honestly, it was so many moments in my career at LSU where it was like that. I can't even remember all of it, because it was. I think a big thing with coaching is you have to get your kids to buy in. You have to get your kids to respect you. So, and a part of that was just lost. And I don't think similar to what we're going through now at LSU. I think guys come into certain situations and they're not familiar with the culture, nor can they adapt to it.
Yeah,
we talk about that a lot.
So you kind of go through the motions in that, your kids are doing what you tell them to do, but are they really buying in? Do they really respect you? Or is it kind of just, I'm getting along because I have to?
Yeah.
Now you don't have to. You can go to the portal. But then we just, we were respectfully just got along with it.
You make a great point, because it's one of those situations where I have no idea, not on the inside, don't know firsthand, but outside looking in, Ohio State this year seemed to be one of those teams where they were essentially trying to buy a championship. And towards the end of the year, obviously, when they laid an egg and lost to Michigan, it was kind of like, well, this idea is not going to work. but some way, somehow, they all ended up buying in to whatever it was to go on a run. So I'm curious, are more teams who are going to have to operate and navigate in this portal and this kind of hot potato jumping around, the teams that can adapt to it quicker and better and thrive in it are probably going to be when I say teams, it's really more the staff and the organization. I mean, you hear that more and more often, that term used now than when you and I and say in the 90s and 2000s and 2010, it was about your team and your school. Now it's about an organization, because that's really what it has become. It's a professional sports franchise and free agency, aka the transfer portal, and NIL and salaries and all this stuff. So I think there is a hurdle that some teams are going to have to get over, but the ones that can do it better than others, case in point, Ohio State, that culture and getting kids to buy in is going to start becoming a thing of the past.
Well, I think that's one thing too that y'all talked about, with Florida, and that's one of the things that they talked about a couple weeks ago on our show was, a lot of these kids like Mike from Florida, that they're not bought into the program, and I do feel like Billy's doing a better job at getting people that fit him. The thing about like Louisiana and Baton Rouge, LSU, is the culture so much different in South Louisiana than it is everywhere. And so I agree with what both of y'all are saying as far as, culture. It has to be a fit, but then the money aspect of it. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask Charles about from what he mentioned earlier. Being that you didn't have a voice as a 18, 19, 20-year-old, now you've got Twitter or X, and you've got, Facebook and Instagram and all these TikTok and all these things. If you're a freshman and you felt like this wasn't going to work for you, you're not getting to play. Everybody says you should be getting to play, or your teammates think you should be getting to play. You're lighting it up in practice. If Charles Scott is playing today and that happens, what do you do?
Well, I think it's ways to do things, and I would never go on a social media site and blast my coach or my organization or my team. I would never do anything to disrespect the situation or, like I said, try to shed negative light on it.
Mm-hmm.
I would just simply get with my family and make a decision on the portal. And that's the beauty of things now. A lot of these kids aren't just jumping around trying to find the championship. These guys are looking for legitimate opportunity.
Yeah.
You got guys that are behind starters that may be an All-American down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So with a guy like that, hey, if I'm his dad, if my son is in that situation, yeah, we're sitting down trying to make a decision because, hey, maybe this isn't the best, situation for us. And it doesn't have to all be negative.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, hey, we disagree with you. Let us disagree and still be, on good accord and go our separate ways. I would have never utilized social media to put any of that out there like that.
Yeah, I think Charles is right, because it seems like more and more teams are having some, I'll say, open dialogue and being open-minded to, hey, we've got 22 spots. We had envisioned you being the starter, but for whatever reason, injuries, scheme, whatever, so-and-so's fitting better, maybe worth you taking a look and seeing where you can find a spot that's best for you in your situation and gives you a better opportunity. A great example, the best one probably of all time, or as of yet, is Joe Burrow. I mean, guys at Ohio State, I'm sure he would have done great things at Ohio State, but things weren't working out. So then he transfers to LSU, and the rest is history. Michael Penix is another, example of a guy that kind of started off really well. A kid here from Tampa, went to Indiana, doing some good things. Just kind of kept getting that nasty injury bug. and sitting down with that coaching staff, and I think they were very transparent with him. Say, hey, I think you need a new, fresh start. I think you need to look to see where you could thrive and just kind of hit a good reset. And thank God he did, because things worked out very well for him. So I'm not opposed to any transfer portal. I think where there's got to be some parameters, or at least some guidelines, is when you've got these people that have transferred 5 times in 5 years, that sometimes you got to scratch your head and say, well, what are we doing here? What's best for that individual? And again, don't know it firsthand, so I can't sit here and shake my finger at it. But the days where, like you said earlier, a guy like yourself who grew up and it was LSU or bust pretty much, same with me. I mean, going to Florida games as a kid and, getting some sort of orange and blue sweatshirt or hat or gear or something every year for Christmas. I mean, it was Gainesville or bust for me. I'll be hard pressed to see if that will ring true in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years for kids that are now getting recruited. Again, because the money is just so substantial, and there are opportunities really everywhere now versus back when we played, it was kind of like, hey, here's my top 5, and here's where I want to go, or here's the only place I really want to consider going.
Well, I think that's evident too in like the Bryce Underwood situation. I mean, this kid grew up 20 minutes from Ann Arbor, has been committed to LSU for 2 years, and then Michigan goes and drops a $12 million bag on his step. I mean, but like you said though, Mike, I mean, those kids that grow up around there aren't necessarily honed in on the school like they used to be. And I mean, if you would have taken him back in 1990, he's not considering going anywhere but Michigan.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. They came off of winning a national title last year, and he's still wanting to get out of there, for whatever reason. But, hey, here you go. We want you to stay. Now, does that money help those kids stay more? Or does it make the kids that are around there that are really good say, well, he got it. Why aren't they going to do that for me? Because there's a whole situation here that this thing could go in a lot of different directions.
Right.
I think in the next 2, 3, 4 years, this is when guys and those recruits and freshmen are going to have to maximize their earning potential, because we all know, or at least I think it's going to happen within the next 5 years, where they'll have a commissioner, they'll have a salary cap, there will be some sort of
owners
parameter again on how many times you can transfer, when you can transfer, etc. So I think that's coming. So if I'm a high school sophomore, junior, or senior, I'm making dang sure I get the most I can right now while I can, because it'll start shrinking in. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mike, that's what Chance just said, owners of programs. And I saw, what was that article when they were talking about, these billionaires that have been approached about basically being the funding arm of the athletic department, and so if you're a, Bill Gates or somebody, and a program comes to you and they're going to offer you X amount of return on investment if you give, this amount. I mean, I'm like Chance. I think that there's going to be some signing on the dotted lines where, they basically own the program. I don't know how that will work with, a lot of state universities, but as far as the athletic department, that's totally separate.
Yeah, you'll buy the whole athletic
so you would,
department. You can't just buy the football program.
Yeah.
Because the football program usually feeds the rest of the sports. So, for instance, at Florida, there's 21 athletic sports. Football is your gravy. Basketball makes money. Baseball breaks even. The rest lose money. So 18 out of 21. So if you go by just the football program, guess what? Those other 18 sports are going to go away because they can't get funded. So if you own them all, they'll become intramural or or just go away, and you can't do that. So like that's why you will end up owning the whole athletic department, which I think is cool. I think it's awesome. I think there'll be some VC groups that come together and make some pretty good heady offers to some athletic directors and institutions, and I think you're going to see it. It's going to just change the way things are done. It's going to set a precedence of how things are done, and I'd like to see the first ones to do it.
And we have to change our thinking about how it's going because in the end, it's entertainment. So when you look at a kid that's coming out, he has to think about, hey, where can I get the most shine?
Yeah, for sure.
What school
For
is
sure.
the shiniest?
Yeah.
So who has the most money?
Yep.
Where can my name be broadcasted the loudest? So just like the NFL, I mean, these guys are playing for the big bucks, but you think about in college, how long has these institutions made money off of
Yeah.
kids?
Well,
Billions and
That's
trillions actually over the
Oh,
years.
yeah, probably.
So you got to think about it. Hey, maybe this is a good thing, but like you said, it has to be parameters. It has to be guidelines to it. It can't just be.
well, to
wide
Mike's
open.
credit, there will be a commissioner, and that's when it would be fun to own a program because then we have lack of better words, the NCAA is what it. Just say it's NCAA, and we know it won't be but that's like the NFL. So that's the one that's paying all these schools and stuff. Well, you have these TV, the SEC network, which gave $81 million to each school last year.
That's
so
insane.
You're going to have all that rev sharing, which is what's about to go into effect now. So then with a commissioner, it's going to be a body. Then like Mike is very familiar with players unions. You're familiar with that. You're going to have a collective bargaining. You're going to have a players union. And so the rest, I mean, it'll be running in a shadow of the NFL, I would say.
Right.
And let's go. Like, I love it.
So my question to that is, if that's the case, do they still give scholarships? Because your scholarship is to pay your tuition, and if they are paying you to play football, you should pay your own scholarship, correct? So then it could come down to what institution has got the lesser scholarship burden. I mean, just hypothetical. I mean, there's a lot of things that could go into that. I mean, do you still give a scholarship?
I think so.
Well, I think, if you run the economics of it, and again, going back to the venture capitalist type of group, they're just going to look at, hey, what's your expenses on scholarships? Florida and LSU, throw it in there. And they're just going to run the numbers. Say, okay, hey, right now it's costing you $12 million to outfit these 21 teams. So they'll just bake that into their pro forma, and it's not going to be called a scholarship. It'll be called, like a cell phone reimbursement or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I think the biggest hurdle for all this is essentially going to be whether they will or will not be considered employees. I don't have the answer to that, and nor do I think we solve it here between the four of us. But I think that's going to be the hurdle and the lift in order to, we talk about trying to gain some control back. Well, when you gain control back of a company, you typically will take everybody who maybe was a 1099 and turn them into a W-2. That's how you get control. But then to Chance's point, then you've got players unions, and you've got bureaucracies, and you've got healthcare, then you've got work comp. And, I mean, this ain't just like hey, we're going to make you employees and this will solve all our problems.
And
I don't know if anybody wants to get into that can of worms either, because that's been floated and talked about for years, and none of the universities want to do it, and they're all billion-dollar institutions. So does a venture capitalist group know how to run that system better than a school? Maybe they do, but I think that's going to be the last mountain to climb of that. How do you identify that individual? Are they an employee or are they a 1099 contractor?
they would be a 1099. And because if you start looking at that, it's just like as a business owner, like we deal with. So if you have that guy and he's coming from LSU to Florida, he's had a bad back, he's had a pinched nerve, whatever. It's no different than a workers' comp case. So you're bringing a guy in, you know there's something wrong with him. As soon as it tweaks, and then he goes to workers' comp, puts it on your insurance. Guess what? You're fighting with that to try to get the lesser of that, but you know they're going to pay it because he came. So that's another thing you got to worry about and deal with. Is like, because it's
Well, that's my point. If they're 1099s and they can't unionize, then
contractor. That's correct. That's how I think.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
a union would go right out the window, which again, that'll kind of limit their. And obviously, I was in a union. Charles was in a union. There's good and bad, pieces of that equation, because there's some strength in how you fight the system or the company or the organization. But it's going to be kind of hold on to your butts here for the next couple of years. 'Cause I think it's going to be a wild ride. I think it's going to get even better. I think things will kind of clean up. I think we'll still love and know college football as we always have. It's just going to have new wrinkles and new twists. And it's like adapt and figure it out, or you can, like Saban said a long time ago, the dinosaurs went extinct because they didn't learn how to evolve. So,
Well, one of the things, though, if you think about it, so you're vested in the NFL, correct? You played enough to get vested. You didn't get vested, right? You did. Okay, so let's look at that. All right. So in college, Charles had a great career in college, played 3-4 years, How does that work? Because you got guys that don't make it to the league or they don't pan out in the league. How is your retirement? Because they gave up their bodies to college. Maybe they got injured, never could overcome, but they were still studs on their team. Then they get hurt. Okay, how does that work as far as vesting a college athlete? Because they're going in, it's going to hinder them into their professional careers and even in their livelihoods. So there are questions galore that have to be answered.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like the kid at LSU right now, Greg Brooks, all SEC safety, had the brain tumor.
Yeah.
They removed it. I don't know what happened, but he's basically paraplegic for the rest of his life. Like, I know that's a risk you take. And I can see it from both sides, from the standpoint of, as a player, you've got this professional career ahead of you, and something like that happens, you look at what you were, gonna make, and now you can't because you're wheelchair bound, but also, the risk you take when you play. I don't know, man. All of that is just we could talk about it for hours on end, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely, there is no easy answer. There's no, black and white. It's a lot of gray involved. And those type of situations are probably happening more and more than we even know and realize too. That's kind of the scary part, is that for every Carson Beck deal that you hear and talk about, you're not hearing. I didn't even realize this young man at LSU. I mean, going through what he's not just for the next couple months. We're talking about the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And he's not turning around and getting a $4 million check or payday from anybody anytime soon. And that's where I think hopefully some sort of collective bargaining, whatever you want to call it, the only term I can really think of in certain, in these type of situations, you can kind of do what's right and at least take care of somebody from a medical perspective and make sure that those type of instances, aren't going to be something they're going to have to, deal with on their own. Because that's the other thing too, and it's kind of sad in a sense where, all these schools and universities all have great medical programs. They all have great medical, medical schools, staff, etc. Like just sometimes just do what's right. And I think it all too often is, well, if we do it for this kid, well, hopefully you're not having a kid every other year get a terrible disease and have this happen. I think statistically it's the odds are in your favor, school, that this isn't going to be, an everyday occurrence. But that's just how football is. It's a business at the end of the day, and how people can solve the problem. It's just going to have to continue to evolve.
On behalf of Jumping Off Sides, we love to make picks for weekly games.
And sometimes we don't always get them right. We ask if you do gamble, please gamble responsibly.
And if you need help, please call 1-877-770-STOP. That's 1-877-770-7867. We would like to take this time to thank one of our corporate sponsors, Louisiana Downs Casino and Racetrack. Since 1974, Louisiana Downs has been the premier racetrack in all of America and continues to showcase the best horse racing has to offer. From quarter horse racing in January to thoroughbred racing in May, Louisiana Downs is where excitement is always at the finish line.
So, Charles, I know that, I guess it would have been 2008, you had over 1,100 yards rushing. How hard was that Mike is talked about how tough it is week in, week out in the SEC. And how hard was that 1,100 and however many yards rushing through an SEC gauntlet on your body, but not just your body, your mind, your body, everything. How hard was that as a running back?
Man, it was tough. Of course, you had your games where you didn't have to go as hard, but even then, it was tough. You could see losing against people like Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect to Kentucky, but the lower tier SEC teams, those games are still hard.
Yeah.
Even when you win by 50, it's still hard. Every Sunday morning was just, routine of going to the training room and getting contusions rubbed out and getting different treatment. I mean, you have to practice body maintenance every day.
Yeah.
Of some sort. It's not just getting out of practice, going home. You cold tub, hot tub. Now they have the crowd chambers. They have all kinds of technology now. But like I said, it's tough, and you just have to really just manage your time in that. Okay, how much time do I have to recover until I have to go back to battle next Saturday? So day by day you have to manage that.
JD, I used to always refer to guys like Charles and Ernest Graham and those just guys who were carrying the rock. They were like a NASCAR. We had to get them to race day. So we had to fix a fender. We had to replace a couple flat tires. And we as players respected these guys, and we didn't mind if they didn't practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. They may have came out on Thursday with their pads on and took a couple. It was okay. Hey, do your thing. I can recall very vividly. I mean, you'd come in on Sunday. I mean, he talks about bruises and bumps. I mean, it was dude, what just happened to you? Because, I mean, these guys are running full speed. And Charles, I've told this story quite a few times. I've had the ball one time in my entire football career in my life. And it was this wasn't college, but still, it was a preseason game. And somehow I'm blocking my guy. Quarterback steps at the end of the half. He gets spun around, and for some reason, it's the last play of the half. Well, he decides to lateral me the ball. I'm standing there with the ball in my hand, and I saw 11 eyeballs that looked at me like lunch, dinner, snack. I mean, and I took off as quick as I could straight for the sidelines. I wasn't trying to make any tackles. So my point is, I mean, say if Charles was carrying the ball 18 times that game, he had 18 instances where people weren't just trying to tackle him; they were trying to take his life away. And when I'm telling you, my point is we as players knew how hard they were, getting hit and then laying the hits on these guys, and the amount of running they're doing. So it was literally, I mean, it was like getting a NASCAR ready to get ready for the next race next Saturday. So, those maintenance plans, I mean, we watched it and we never want, at least I didn't. I never said boo about those guys not practicing. I was like, I need them on Saturday. I don't care if he's not here on Tuesday. I don't care if he's at Muscle Beach on Wednesday. Just get him to Saturday.
Well, to your point about getting you to Saturday, and you've talked a lot about Coach Spurrier not really having a game plan, just kind of winging it, especially on defense. But offense, he knew what he wanted to do, and if y'all ran good plays, halfway through the practice, y'all were going in the locker room. I think that's what he was talking about a couple weeks ago in here. But Charles, one of the things that I remember everybody talked about was Les Miles going live all the time. Like, did y'all go live in practice that much?
I think every practice we had at least 8 live plays. We had an inside period where we would go first D against first O, and those plays were live. It was every practice.
So you had to really pay attention in practice and not get injured in practice, because of how often y'all hit.
Right, yeah, you really had to be tuned in and know everything, because if you get thrown in, for example, my freshman year, just so happened I was the only freshman that actually came in on time. And then you had Justin Vincent, who was recovering from an ACL. Ali Broussard was doing the same, and Hester was kind of nicked up. So I had to go with Jamarcus Russell. So I was thrown into, baptism by fire, so to speak, which ended up helping me in the long run. But I had to get it quick because I had LaRon Landry and Glenn Dorsey, those guys staring me down on defense. So
Yeah.
I had to adapt quick and learn it pretty quick.
So what's the most carries you had in a game in college?
I would have to look that one up.
You don't know?
And I know the hardest game that I've ever played was the Auburn game.
Really?
Was where we came back right there at the end and they threw the ball to Brandon LaFell and we scored it might have been a couple minutes left.
2000.
That's pretty much 10 out of 10 LSU Auburn games.
Brandon LaFell.
Oh, yeah, that's a different game. Yeah, that was at Auburn. Yeah.
Yeah. It was actually one we were just watching, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but that game that we were watching and I had on earlier, you were the first LSU running back to ever have 100 yards rushing at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Right.
That's a pretty damn big
Jack
accomplishment.
Marucci stopped me on the plane and told me that. I didn't know until, Jack Marucci stopped me and let me know and congratulated me. He was like, that's a pretty cool deal. He's like,
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad we couldn't do it in the swamp. Huh? That place is a nightmare.
Of your stadiums that you played at, excluding LSU, of course, what was the hardest place to play? What was the most fun place to play? Kind of that.
I would say by far the swamp was the hardest.
Really?
I mean, it's just the fans are so close, and
Right.
it's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
They love their football like we do at LSU too,
Right.
so it gets pretty live in that place. And when you got guys like Brandon Spikes and Tebow, I mean,
Right.
it gets pretty live.
Real live.
I think the funnest, let's see, the nicest stadium I've probably been in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
It was a really nice place to play. The weather was perfect. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
it was an all around nice trip from where we stayed to where we ate to
Right.
the
Yeah.
people that we dealt with. It was very nice.
They're a lot different fan base now, but Mike got to play there quite a bit, and he talks about it. His little run in with Ric Flair on the sideline.
That was actually with Spurrier. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So you play, y'all played Spurrier, yeah.
How did you like Fayetteville? I liked that stadium. I thought it was pretty nice.
We've never been to Fayetteville.
Oh, y'all were
we always
always
played.
Yeah, they played Little Rock, yeah.
Big
I think
Stone.
they started Fayetteville the year that we left, maybe.
Yeah.
I think 2011.
Now, Mike, did you ever get to play in Sanford, or did y'all always play in Jacksonville?
No, I was always in Jacks. There's some of those historic places. Just never played in Ole Miss. Never played in Fayetteville or Little Rock. Never played in Athens. So I mean, there's a few that I missed out on. But I could agree with Charles. Like Columbia and South Carolina, that was a cool venue. They had a really good crowd. A lot of stuff going on around the stadium with those cabooses and the rooster and all their kind of fun stuff. So that was a good away venue. I like Jordan Hare. I mean, Auburn was a pretty cool spot. Although we laid an egg there in 2000, but I thought Auburn was a cool venue.
So, as far as Sanford, that's when I think about you running the ball. That game at Georgia, whenever you put that linebacker on the hood and then run it in from like 35, I was like, and you just walked in, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
What year was that? I don't remember. Was that 2008?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think so. That was a hell of a run.
Yeah, funny story about that run. I wasn't supposed to do that. A lot of people laugh. We called a timeout. I think we were down by 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Coach Miles comes to me and says, "Hey, man, just get in the middle and fall down. Get in the middle and fall, and we'll let Coach kick the field goal, and we'll go on about our business." You know, I guess I kind of had a feeling. I mean, you know, I was like, I'm not falling down, you know. And the rest is history, you know. So, but that was actually the plan for me to get in the middle and fall down.
Was he mad about it?
I think he actually kind of said something to me about it after the fact. You know, he's like, "Yeah, we won, but you disobeyed the call. I mean, you changed the call in the huddle or something." You know, he said something about it. But
so, did you change the call in the huddle, or you just?
I didn't change the call. I just made my mind up that I wasn't falling down. Like I wasn't. That's just not who I wanted to be. You know.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I mean,
well, then you put it on the leg of a kicker.
You never know. Yeah,
you know what could happen.
Yeah.
As Mike attributed about Jordan Hare. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Kickers do kicker things sometimes. So.
They do.
And
Penthouse or outhouse with that group of athletes.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and that game was one you didn't want to leave a chance either because we were back and forth with AJ Green. I mean, it was they had a great team down there, so it was nothing you wanted to kind of leave the chance.
That was Stafford too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was that Stafford? I thought that was the redheaded kid, Cox or something.
I'm pretty sure it was Stafford.
No, it was Stafford in 08. Yeah.
Okay.
So Charles, when did you win your national championship? What year?
2007. Against
2007.
Ohio State. Yep.
In New Orleans, how was that?
In New Orleans, it was awesome, man. It was everything you could dream of as being a kid from Louisiana.
Yeah.
You know, and going to the Dream School and winning in our state, it was awesome, man. Our people, like you said, South Louisiana is a different place. I mean, it's very special. You know, it's dear to my heart, man. And that's, like I said, those experiences, you'll never get anything better than that, man. It was great.
Who's your team in the pros?
Tampa Bay.
Tampa? Okay.
Yes, I talked about earlier. I was born on MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, so I root for the Bucks.
That's awesome.
He was telling Mike he grew up in Tampa till he was 3 and then moved here.
Oh, nice.
So, little kindred spirits there.
The Air Force that brought y'all here?
Well, we're originally all from here.
Okay.
But towards the end of my dad's career, he was transferred back to Barksdale, close to home. So he finished out right here at Barksdale.
Or as they say, Barcatraz, because that's where they're going to send you to retire.
The bubble.
Right, yeah.
Barksdale bubble.
Yeah, I grew up actually in Saline, Louisiana, about 45 to an hour from here.
Yeah, Watermelon Festival.
Yeah.
And rodeo. No, that's really cool.
Did you announce that rodeo?
No, they weren't having it anymore when I was announcing my short little stint, my tenure.
Chance might be the reason they discontinued that thing. You never know.
Very possible.
Very, very possible.
Very possible.
I missed a lot of steers in that pen. I mean, you know, not very good. That's why I announced. What was draft day like for you?
It was something that was special, and I chose to do it with my family. We did it right there at the house.
Cool.
We boiled crawfish on the back porch, invited everybody in, and we just sat around and, like I said,
waited on the call.
You know, and when it happened, I mean, like I said, it was a dream come true.
Yeah.
As a kid, that's what I always dreamed of, getting that call and being with my parents and being with my family. And of course, my mom was crying, my dad was elated. I mean, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
So was Andy Reid? He was in Philly then.
He was.
Yeah.
He was.
What was he like, and what was it like coming from LSU and then picking up his playbook, his schemes, and How hard was it for you to adjust, and did you enjoy pass blocking, that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
well,
Yeah.
it was okay. I mean, the adjustment was more so like we talk about culture. I mean, I get up to Philly coming from Louisiana. It was just it was a thing to adapt to.
Hmm.
And as far as football goes, Andy Reid was a tough coach. You know, training camp was very tough.
Come on.
We went up to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and we got to business. I
Yeah.
mean, it was no cakewalk. So I actually learned a lot from just his attitude and how he approached training camp and how he treated us during training camp. You know,
Yeah.
very professional, and it was kind of like, hey man, you're a grown man. Either get the job done or we'll find somebody who does. You know,
Yeah.
he was like that with everybody, franchise player all the way down. You know,
Mhm.
so
That's
I got a
cool.
lot of respect for him.
So you had McNabb, and then at the tail end, Vic, or
It was Vic and then not McNabb.
okay,
What was the guy's name? I forget. Uh,
I'm trying.
Cobb, was it Cobb?
Yeah. Kevin.
Cobb, yeah,
Kevin Cobb.
yeah, Kevin Cobb and Michael Vick.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that was right when Vic came back into the league when he was lighting
Right.
it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was his
MVP.
first year back in
Yep.
the league. Yep.
Yep.
Sure was.
Wow, I remember that Monday night game where he went wild in that one. So,
Still the fastest athlete I've ever seen in my life
Yeah.
in person. That dude was something else.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. I mean, you look at him in practice and it's crazy. I mean, you understand that these guys are all professionals, but it's a separation when
Yeah,
it comes to Michael Vick. So
Yeah.
yeah, he was a different animal. I mean, different. He had that what was that L2 burst, whatever that is on the plate. I mean, he was just
that's right.
gone,
I
just
think that
out of. I mean, never saw a guy start and stop as fast as he could.
Yeah, that's what everybody talks about
Yeah.
with him is that you can't replicate that speed or
Mm-mm.
replicate that speed in practice
right.
and all that. I would love to have seen y'all's practices to see how how fast
Yeah.
it was and how it all moved. And
I remember in high school, we were in high school, my mom's brother, one of her brothers, she's one of 10, but one of her brothers lived in Newport News, Virginia. And he called the house and he was talking to mom and he was and dad, and he was like, "Hey, there's a kid up here at Newport News High School that is going to be the next great NFL player. Like, he is unreal."
yeah,
And it's crazy to think about that because, we all see these kids in high school sometime. And you're like, that guy's going somewhere,
Yeah.
But it just to hear that and now, to see what he was able to do in the NFL. But
Where did he just get the head coaching job?
was it Norfolk?
Norfolk. Yeah.
yeah, Norfolk
Oh
State.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think my moment was what was it versus Florida State? It was him. It was pretty much him versus Peter Ward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That game
Mhm.
is ingrained in my memory. That was that was my Michael Vick moment. Was like, man, this dude.
Yeah.
he's
Different
special.
level.
Yeah.
A different level.
Yeah.
When you were in high school and playing and obviously to go to big time college football and stuff, what was it like for you in high school? Because you hear so many stories. I mean, you got the Mike Pearsons of the world that dominate, and was it just like, all right, I'm out of here by the end of Q1 because like this, Derrick Henry type numbers and that kind of thing? I mean,
I mean,
at Jonesboro Hodge, because I mean y'all, pretty mid high school team, but to have a standout running back like yourself, I mean, how was that to handle everything that you handled there? Was it just pretty easy, or
well, I'm fortunate. I'm very blessed. I had the right people around me to keep me grounded. You know, and like I said, I grew up military family. My dad, he wasn't very strict as far as me going and doing things, but he was very disciplined.
yeah,
So, when that started happening, he kind of just leaned in and was, made sure that if he made a point to tell me that if this is the route you're going to go, make sure you're the best at it. And I don't want you cutting any corners. I don't want you BSing. I want you to be straightforward, and that's all I did. When it came, I was surprised, but I tried to stay grounded as much as I could. And like I said, I had the right people around me in my corner that would say, "Hey, man, you're getting a little out of control. You know, you're still this guy from the country. You know, so just calm it down a little bit. So, like I said, unfortunately, I had the right people around me to where it wasn't really a problem. You know, like I said, we were all just in shocked and amazed, but it wasn't a problem where I, got the big headed and I mentally just kind of flew off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Charles, I was curious if you did you take a trip to USC?
I did not. I did not. I actually committed to LSU, and then after the LSU commit, Ken Norton Jr. and Pete Carroll, they really poured it on. They tried to get me out to USC, and something happened where I was supposed to go. I think I found out that DeMarco Murray was going, and I decided I didn't want to be on a
Okay.
visit with somebody else.
and he ended up going to Oklahoma.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were all, man, that was one of my top three as well. So we were all kind of trying to jump around and figure out which school we were going to. So
You had LSU, USC, Florida.
it was LSU, USC, Oklahoma, Florida, then Alabama.
Yeah.
That was my top five.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Pretty good top five.
I got
I mean,
offers
if
from
you're-
everybody from Duke to
Yeah.
I got offers from everybody in the nation. But those are my top five.
Yeah.
I'm always curious if because I took my mom with me to one trip. Did you take your parents to any of the trips or anything, or any funny stories there?
Well, I took my mom, and my mom is so, I guess I don't want to say naive, but back then I was
Mom,
I was her.
I think we got the same moms.
you know, and I'm the baby of the family, so I was
Me
baby.
too.
Boy. There was a lot of things I think that she had in her head that I wouldn't possibly do. So we would give her the tour of the academic center and let her see all the good stuff, and then we'll say, "Hey, okay, Mama, good night.
Yeah.
We got to show them the real Baton Rouge now."
Right.
So it was in Baton Rouge, Alabama. Wherever
Sounds like we got the same mom, and
Yeah.
and the same situation. I'm the baby too, so there's.
So I made sure that she got what she wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
I was going
Okay.
to college to get an education, so I made sure that she felt good with that.
Yeah. Did she teach at
Yeah.
Jonesboro?
Yeah, mom.
Well, for a little bit.
Yeah. Where's she
Mike's
teach?
mom was
What-
a teacher too.
What grade she teach?
She's taught everything, man. But currently, she's doing middle school, I believe, in Ruston. She's subbing. She tried to retire, but she's kind of.
I feel like your mom and my mom must have talked. 'Cause my mom was a sixth grade teacher and then an elementary principal, so I'm in the same boat you're in with. We're going to school. She wants to talk to the counselor, this and that. I'm like, oh my Lord, I should have brought mom on this trip.
Yep. That was the first visit, the academic center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you got to the Giants, I know we've talked about this, and you were right there about to get elevated, off the practice squad and get on the team, and you got hurt. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, it was rookie. After my rookie season, I was off season back at LSU actually.
Mm-hmm.
In school, finishing school, and just one night, and I was coming home, and it was crazy. I called one of my teammates, to drive me home because I had been drinking, and we got hit by a drunk driver.
Mm.
Wow.
So it was kind of like, should have been out, yeah, whatever, but it was meant to happen. I think so. I think I was probably living a little bit too fast, and that was just a way God to tell me to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
But I ended up breaking all the ribs on my right side and a bone in my neck, so it kind of stunted me going back into training camp that next year with the Giants. So, and that was a big factor on me getting released as well. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an unfortunate situation, but like I said, man, even doing the right thing, it still happened. So
Yeah.
Do you get back to many LSU games now, or kind of where do you stand on that regard?
Well, I didn't make it last year. I try to get down for at least one or two. I got kids that are old enough to know what's going on, so I try to get them down every chance I can. Spring game is real big for us. We try to get to that every year for sure, though. So.
Yeah. Now, how is the alumni outreach?
It's been good. I mean, I guess, since Kelly's been back, I think he's made it a purpose to reach out to other guys that's alumni and stuff that hadn't been connected to the program. I'm actually still good friends with Justin Vincent, and he's working with Tab. So, I mean, they do a good job of if we're coming into town, they're going to accommodate you, and take care of you.
Yeah.
BK's the best. We need to keep him down there for sure, right, Mike?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that guy, tell you what, man, you need a big game coach. That's your guy right there.
Correct. To keep him down there. So, did you finish your degree?
I did.
That's awesome.
I did.
What was it in?
It was interdisciplinary. It was communications and sports studies.
Oh, very
Okay.
nice.
So,
Well, that's important, and I think that's something that in this era and in this world we're living in now with all the big money and stuff, I think that's something good that you can pour back into them when you go to spring, and have that opportunity to talk to the kids. And because, I mean, that's what they are to us now. I mean, we're all middle-aged, and
Yeah.
crazy. But we, for you to be able to pour back into them and say, hey, look, it's not, you're not going to always have this,
Right.
but you will have that education. So I think that's really important. And man, that's great.
And in it, you feel invincible while you're there.
Sure.
So it's like
Yeah.
you got to understand that, like you said, this is finite,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to set yourself up. Whether you're going to the league or whether you're going to go, raise a family and get married, raise a family, you have to set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen. You gotta have a plan.
And what is, not to put you on the spot, but like sports studies, what does that entail? Because I mean, we're obviously sports nuts here. So.
It was actually the negotiation of venues.
Okay.
That was to get to the nuts and bolts of the course that I took. But when I went back to LSU, what I wanted to do was put together a major that catered to my coaching career.
Okay.
And that's what I did. So I got a little bit of sociology, communications, and sports studies was literally like the negotiation of sports venues and sporting events.
Okay.
So it was kind of unrelated to coaching, but
Yeah.
it was just one of the courses that I had to, take to get done. But
That's cool.
Yeah.
My main reason for having that interdisciplinary degree was to get into coaching.
Yeah. What of the guys that you played with and stuff? I mean, obviously you had the fortitude and the wherewithal to come back and get your degree, and I know with your mom that probably and your dad it's so important to get that education. Of all the other guys that played and stuff, what kind of percentage would you say came back to do what you did or finished?
Man, to be honest, I think a pretty good bit of our guys did.
Yeah.
Just thinking back, we had a big group of guys that were training for the combine and for pro day, but were still in school.
That's awesome.
So we were all kind of, going to class, still working out with Moffitt, although we weren't, on the team, we were still in school. So it was a good group of guys.
It was
really
a
pretty
good.
big group of guys.
And it says a lot to your coaches too, and the faculty down there for you to want to go back and for y'all to continue that on.
Right.
And you just mentioned it, Moffitt. I put him right up there as one of the top strength and conditioning coaches of any college team in that era or any era.
Yeah.
If you ask me, that is the biggest factor in what's changed at LSU. Mike Kelly, but when you look at that weight room and what Tommy Moffitt did with us and how he changed the culture when Saban first came, he was a part of that. Coming from where we were in 01 to where Saban left the program. That was a big jump. And it was really because of Moffitt and the thing that we're missing, and you can tell when you watch the games. It was not only strength and conditioning physically, it was mental.
Yeah.
So he created an attitude. I mean, it was a nasty, mean attitude, and I don't think we have that now.
Well,
I don't see it.
Yeah.
I tell you that the 06 and 08 teams of Florida, I can't speak for Mike and them as far as S&C goes, but like Mickey Marotti, and you saw what he did at Ohio State with Urban. He, to me, was a driving factor in those teams. Like the mentality of those teams, the physicalness, that plays such a huge part in it. And I felt like Florida was one of the more physical teams back then because of Mickey Marotti. And I've read a lot of books from Urban and in that whole path, and Mickey was his guy.
Right.
And so that was huge. And Mike, maybe you can speak to your strength and conditioning when Spurrier was there. I know y'all were a lot of finesse, but y'all ran the football and y'all were tough inside.
Yeah, I think the average fan doesn't realize how much time you spend with the strength and conditioning, staff, and they are truly, I would say, the pace setter. I had the fortunate, my freshman year, we had Jerry Schmidt, who any place he went, he won a national championship, whether it was Notre Dame, Florida, Oklahoma, and then he was there with a guy named Rob Glass, and Hot Rod. I mean, we called him Hot Rod. I mean, this guy was, tough as nails. And I promise you guys, I don't want to give his age away, but he's not a spring chicken, and I promise you he could probably still do 225. I would put money on it that he could get close to 20.
Wow.
I mean, this dude was just a freaking machine. I mean, and one of those he's the first guy, I believe, in college football that was paid $1 million as a strength coach, I think, when he went back to Oklahoma State. I mean, and Rob is one of those guys that helped me in my development, made me tougher, had that mental strength that Charles was just talking about, like, slapping weight on there where you're looking at it going, there ain't no way. And then somehow you get up off the machine, and then next thing you know, you're doing it again and even more. They set the tone for every team, no doubt, because those guys are with you more often than the average fan realizes. And the way they motivate, the way they press the buttons, and they know how to do it. There's, that's the psychology involved with, the ones that they know they can, keep beating, and just they come back and they want more. And then there's probably some where they say, you know what, this isn't our kind of guy. This isn't our kind of player. So they just kind of, work through it, and I'll say work around them, and they don't just throw them to the wayside, but they just know, like, this isn't something we're going to be able to hitch our wagon to. So I'm not going to try to, I'm not going to try to do something that's just not there.
Right.
And at the end of the day, and we all know this, I mean, cream's going to rise to the top, and the guys who want to get pushed, and the guys that want to win championships, and the guys that want to get better are going to come back, and they're going to be on time, and they're going to, keep asking for more. And the ones that just kind of want to check a box or, punch a clock, you let them do their thing, because there's still a place for them. We need some bodies. We need some people to help us run the scout team. So
that's right.
That's how favoritism's created.
That's right.
The guys who work hard to get the favoritism.
That's
right. Yeah.
Question for you. And I'm always intrigued by this, but most talented player that you saw that didn't put out and we don't know about? College.
That's tough. I won't say he didn't put out. Yeah. I'll just say that
didn't work out.
The circumstances didn't work out.
Yeah.
I'd have to say Ryan Pearlman.
Oh, yeah.
By far.
Yep. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, he was a phenomenal athlete.
Come on.
Great football player, and like I said, his circumstances just weren't fortunate.
Yeah.
He ended up not finishing with the program, but either way, you look at that. You look at the SEC game when Matt Flynn goes down and Pearlman comes in, and it's like, if we're not better, we're clicking on all cylinders just the same as if Matt's there.
Right.
So you got to look back at that and just understand that, hey, this guy is that good. It wasn't just one game. He does this every day in practice.
He was a true freshman too that year, wasn't he?
Well, no, he was
07?
actually, I think he was redshirt.
Redshirt Franco.
Yeah.
Who was the best player that you? Obviously, y'all don't fear anybody, but who was the one that you were like, all right, I need to know where he's at all the time?
LaRon Landry. And just because his attitude on the field, like, he'll take you out at any second. I mean, it didn't matter if you had the ball, not.
And y'all played on the same team.
You had to understand where he was on the field, but it's crazy because my freshman year, I think I had a little run in practice, and I kind of bumped Chevis Jackson, but it was supposed to be a tag drill.
Yeah.
So, of course, the defense is, they're getting all riled up. Well, the next play, I break, a pretty good run. Whistle's blown, and I'm kind of jogging, coming to a jog, and he comes out of nowhere and just, boom, wipe me out. And I get up, and he was like, yeah. So the next play, I'm just like, okay. I went right back at him, like, I don't know I don't know if you know where I'm from, but we don't back down, so I come right back at him, and it turns into, like, this competition, and it gets to the point where, all right, man, I know who you are, you know who I am, let's just not do this all practice, every practice, so we kind of had a mutual respect in that, but he's a guy, like I said, you better know where he is on the field.
What about opposing players? Was there a guy that you're like, all right, we got to account for this guy, or our head on a swivel?
Brandon Spikes.
Yeah, him too, but it was almost like, I guess the mentality that we had was we're always playing against the best.
Yeah.
We had Glenn Dorsey on the line. Like, I've never played against a D tackle as good as him. You could argue this guy, that guy, but I mean, these are the guys that I competed with every day, day in, day out. So I know them. I can see a guy in a flash in a game, a couple plays, but I don't really know who he is. So when people ask me who's the best player I've seen of this and that, you'll notice that I always say one of my guys because the guys I know. I know how these guys are day in and day out.
Sure.
So those Florida games, 06, 07, and 08, you played in all three of those. Florida won the title twice. LSU won it in 07. I've always thought that LSU's best team was 06.
Right, yeah.
And at the end of the year, Florida beat us. I think we had a fumble inside the 5. There was a couple of just stupid turnovers. Florida win the game. We ended up not going to Atlanta.
Right.
Because of the no call at Auburn and early Doucette and all that jazz. But that was a whole other situation where we ran the ball like 4 straight 3-and-outs in the second half. Then, oh, shit, we need to start passing the ball. And then by the time it's too late. But then we go to the Sugar Bowl and just wax Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I thought that 2016 was probably the best team LSU had up until 2011.
Yeah.
Like, how good was that? And Jamarcus Russell was really good at in 06. Like, he was legit, and that's what got him the number 1 overall pick.
Right.
Which, of course, we know how that played out. But
yeah, I mean, I think we had a good combination of guys. And you look at Jamarcus Russell, our receiving core was next to none. Dwayne Bowe, Craig Davis, Early Doucette. I mean, you can't get any better than that as far as starting receivers. You got Brandon LaFell and the guys that came in with my class, and the running back room was stacked.
Yeah.
So you got to think about it. We had the top 3 running backs out of Louisiana that previous year in that room. Me, Keelan, and Richard Murphy, on top of Jacob Hester, Justin Vincent. So it's like we had a lot of firepower. And then what do we have? 3 guys go first round? Was it 3 or 4?
I think it was 3.
Yeah, we had at least 3 guys go first round. And
Tyson Jackson.
Glenn LaRon. It was LaRon Landry. Tyson.
Yeah, I think Tyson went to the Chiefs. LaRon went to the Redskins.
Dwayne Bowe went to the Chiefs. Well, no, Dwayne Bowe.
Yeah, it was Dwayne Bowe. It was Dwayne Bowe.
So, but anyway, we had multiple guys going first round, and I always think, man, that team was a whole lot better. And another weapon that we had on the sideline was Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, you liked him as a coach better than Croton?
I love Jimbo Fisher in the fact that he puts you in a position as a player to win. The offense was more complex in that we would do this. We would get up on Sunday and we would line up the defenses. And we say, hey, okay, first down, they're in 80% of the time they're in this front. 10% in this front, maybe 10 in this, whatever. And he would come out on first down. We know that 80% you're going to be in this front. He'd come out on first down. He would call 5 plays in one. It would be 1 play call, but it's 5 possible options. And he'd lay it out for the quarterback to decide and, give you the option to win. It wasn't just let's call the play, let's go run it. That's how Croton's offense was. It kind of, with all due respect, it kind of dumbed it down when Croton got here. And if you notice, our quarterback play declined. And that was a big big reason because was Jimbo Fisher was amazing at sitting back and getting these quarterbacks ready for the pressure that the SEC is going to bring. And I watched it. When he had Matt Flynn, Jamarcus Russell, and Ryan Perrilloux, I mean, it was quarterback school. They knew everything from what routes they were running, what coverage they were able to read the field. But they were taught that. Then you get to guys like Jerry Lee, he's struggling. It wasn't because he was a bad player.
Right.
It's because he wasn't trained. He wasn't taught that. Jordan Jefferson, they weren't taught to be comfortable in the pocket with the blitz coming. So I think that was a big deal too. Like I said, Jimbo Fisher, when he left, it kind of deteriorated offensive wise. As far as the complexity of our offense.
Yeah. So we got two Florida fans here. Mike played. Chance is a big Gator fan. What were those games like? 06, 07, and 08? How hard were they? I mean, I know LSU 07 was at the 5 fourth downs, and then the two games in 06 and 08 too. I mean if you won those games, you won the national championship. Right. Now, how crazy is it to think about that?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the games that we did win, they were tough, and I mean, if I'm not mistaken, they were all down to the last second. Like, I mean, the game we won with Tebow through the last play and Chad Jones batted it down. I mean, other than the games we played in Florida, it was pretty close. And being in Florida, I could tell you that was the only game that I was just like, well, I mean, hell, it's over. Like because I was
Percy touched it.
No, not Percy too. But man, when Brandon Spikes intercepted that swing route and punted the ball in the stands, I was like, you know what, y'all got that. Hey, we'll go home and regroup. But it was no coming back from that one. It was just too crazy. And then the previous year, I guess, what was it, 07, 06?
Yeah.
My freshman year, we actually had a pretty good chance to win that game. We come out and we get a stop. And then, like you said, the first punt, we muff, and they jump on us. And I mean,
Hester fumbled it on the 2-yard line.
Yeah, I mean, it was over with from that. So, and then Hester fumbled going in. So, man, it was – in teams like that, you can't make those mistakes. They're going to make you pay.
Well, I think that, Charles, we appreciate you coming on the show. I've enjoyed it. Before we end, I want to ask, just give us one story that we probably don't know that, from your playing days that there would be something that would be interesting to us as, football junkies and, Mike, it's former player. Like, what's one story that, is something that Charles Scott remembers, from playing in college?
I think besides the fact of him trying to tell me to fall down, I would have to say the Ole Miss game. Where was all the speculation about the last second. Right.
Yeah.
It was – we all wondered why, we're all standing here and they're trying to get everything together as far as field goal, whatnot. They were actually on the sideline arguing about how many timeouts we had.
Oh, Lord.
So I forgot, I know I was hurt, so I wasn't playing. So I'm over here trying to convince, these people, hey, we don't have a timeout. We don't have it, don't call it, let's just get the field goal team out there. So if you look at the tape, I'm running around on the sideline trying to get field goal together like I'm a coach, and I'm not the only one, so it's like we had other people on that sideline trying to make it right, but it fell apart.
You spiked the ball with no time. Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is we were standing right beside him with the field goal team, like, hey, we got to go right now. And he was like, no, spike it. And that was and we were all just left kind of sitting like, well.
What the hell just happened?
Yeah. I mean.
What was the mood like in the locker room after that?
Quiet. Nobody said a thing. Nobody.
It must be an SEC head coach and special teams kind of Achilles heel, because Napier kind of has those moments too.
But no, that's when the special teams coordinator, we were all ready. And that's the crazy part. It was kind of, and I think we had a lot of problems with Coach Miles not allowing the assistants to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to butt in a little bit.
Micromanage.
Yes, and that was one instance where he micromanaged and it killed us.
Yeah,
because he was wrong. You know, he was wrong in that instance. So
well, that's one of the reasons Jimbo left, wasn't it?
that was one of the reasons Jimbo Fisher left.
Yeah.
So he would have his plays that he wanted to run, and we had to run it, and that was that. You know, so
Inside toss.
So did they argue and fight in practice?
Well, when it got to that point, it was towards the end.
Yeah.
You know, and Jimbo was real professional about himself. He didn't ever let us see that what was going on, but you could see the tension. I mean, we weren't crazy. You could see the tension. So,
well, Charles, it's been enjoyable, man. We appreciate you coming on. You're welcome to come on anytime, man. We, during the season, we take bets and are we pick our games, I should say.
Right,
if you have a gambling problem,
some of us are better than others. So just keep that in mind.
1-877-770 stop.
Well, I don't have a gambling problem, so you want to
Well, you can come on and pick with
man.
us. Then
I'll
anytime.
pick. I don't gamble my money though.
Yeah,
I like it.
So anyway, we appreciate you coming on. On behalf of Chance and Mike, we thank you and man, come on anytime.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed it, man. I love to talk football anytime. So
strive for perfection and do what, Mike?
Catch excellence.
God, he sucks.
there you go.
Strive for perfection, settle for excellence. This was Jumping Off Sides.
I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Oh, Great American Pillow Fight coming at you.
Man, take me out. Somebody just turned the go switch on these suckers and people are moving a lot faster. Something's going on, and I ain't ready.